Hi, it's Michael Senoff at Michael Senoff's HardToFindSeminars.com. The title of this interview is called How to Pick the Right Digital Product to Sell. Deciding on your idea for an information product to sell is hard, but there are a few steps you can take that'll help you make your decision. And in this audio, you'll hear some tips on how to do it. Vivian is a new audio marketing secret student. She has lots of ideas for different information products, but she can't decide which one is best. So she's come to me for advice. And in this consultation, you'll hear me reveal how to pick the right product to go with. But by the end of the consultation, Vivian decides on a clear winning idea, and it could possibly be a great opportunity for other people who want to market audio information products. You'll also learn in this interview the real reason you should aim for high-profile interviews. You'll learn how to build in value to your information product. You'll learn how to locate the only list of experts you'll need for your interview. You'll learn a quick do-it-yourself guide to writing your own interview descriptions. You'll learn 3 ways to stretch your interview's selling power. You'll learn how to get an interview without a written contract or release form. You'll learn some simple words to calm your nerves before your interviews. You'll learn the surprisingly answer to how long does an interview have to be to sell an information product. Making your audio products isn't hard. I'm relaxing now at home with my shoes off as we speak. And once your interviews are done, they can be sales machines that never die. Your only hard part is making a choice and getting started. I hope this audio consultation will get you well on your way. Now let's get going. Okay, so this events coordinator job, you're kind of getting sick of it, or you think maybe they're laying off, or what?
I'm really sick of it. And personally, I've always been someone who wanted to create my own thing, and I don't think there is a job that would give me the opportunity to be very creative as much as I really want to be. And I've always looked for the opportunity to create my own things. I've had events through projects in the past where I've done a little bit of some slippers there and there, selling a few things. But I'm looking at very, very quickly because I want to sort of settle down next to have kids and all. And I'm looking for something that I can absolutely do from home, which is one of the reasons why I feel very inspired by your audio interviews, especially the intro where you talked about your son being ill and something that you could do from home. And that basically the first situation that I'm in a way, because I'm planning to have kids and I want to be at home with my kids and raise my kids, but also have something that I'm doing that's also drinking from.
So look, we have to sell something, right, to make some money.
Yeah.
So are you thinking of creating a series of audio recordings on a certain market or a certain topic?
Yeah, from the email I sent you, I had about 3 main ideas in terms of audio marketing products, and I was hoping to sort of kick your brains on that. I mean, the first one I had, which is sort of inspired from listening to the previous audio material before I actually bought the audio marketing secret, was creating more like an interview series with the top 8 book sellers.
ST Seller, what organization is there?
It's an online website where people who create handmade products can actually sell their products. It's like the eBay for handmade craft.
What gave you this idea?
One of the consultations you did, you were speaking to someone about eBay powered sellers. And that sort of gave me an idea because I'd been on the Etsy website before. I'd seen a couple of the things that are done there, the handmade crafts. And I know that there is a very huge market for that. On the side, they actually have what they call success stories, where the interview is more like a one-page interview of people who have been quite successful on site. But there are people there, and what tends to happen is if you want to open up a shop on the site, a lot of people read success stories and try to see what people have done before. So what I was thinking of doing was sort of interviewing people who were the top sellers. I found a website that actually lists the top sellers by country and by product type. Yeah, that's right. A website called Craft Count. It's a site that actually lists with top sellers, and it is updated every day.
Look at that. This is an interesting site. I had never heard of this.
The biggest handmade product site, basically, but they are the sites that have come up as a result of what they've done.
There's tons of products for how to make money on eBay, but it would be the same thing here. eBay training is all over the place. If you see any kind of training on that,
I found a little ebook that people had written on how to set up your store, just like eBay, it did go how to make money on eBay, but this is more of how to set up your store, the marketing, your taking your pictures. but there are also the eBooks and a couple of other books that people have written about the site and how to post the store on the site. And what I thought of was sort of inspired from your interviews was to create an audio interview for the top sellers and sell that as a product on the site, because on the site is where you're able to sell CDs and audio material.
Have you found anyone selling CDs or audio material that you can see how their sales are going? Is there a way you can tell for the smaller ones how well they do?
Yes, there is a way. If you run a search on the site under the CD, it gives you different options. So it gives you CDs, it gives you cassettes and all of that. You can click on each product and see how many has sold. You can also see on each stop how many views, how many people have clicked on it to actually view that particular product. They could see that on the site.
Do you think your category for sales training for these people would be allowed on this site?
Yeah, that's what I'm not really sure of, because I was looking at it here and there, and I'm not sure if it's something that I can actually sell on the site or if it's something that I need to promote through other.
Do a little research on who owns the company and if they're approachable. And maybe you could contact their marketing manager and explain your idea, what you want to do. You can just say that you've been working on a project where you've been interviewing some of the top Etsy sellers and you've compiled a collection of success secrets from Etsy sellers, and you thought that the interviews would really encourage and inspire a lot of your sellers, on how to sell and to sell more. And obviously that would be good for you. Would that be something that they would be willing to share with their subscribers in their success forum? Maybe you can call them direct or email and find out who handles the marketing and who handles training and stuff like that, and see if that is something that they would be open to. And then you could do that. You would own the product and you could either license it to them or they may be willing to offer it as free training for all their people. And then in the interviews, obviously, you could have, let's say you did 10 of them and they shared 5 of them in the interview. You know how you can have the little commercials in there. If you like this interview on Etsy sellers, go through, etsysuccesstips.com for more great success tips. It could direct them to your website where you can sell a different package of interviews. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, done.
But, before you interview all these Etsy sellers, you really need to do a little research and see if they'd be interested or if you're able to actually put a sales training for Etsy store owners. You may not be able to put that listing on there because it's not really a craft. You know what I'm saying? So do your research before you invest a lot of time. But I think that could definitely be interesting. And I'm not sure exactly how many sellers there are, but I think that could be a great idea. Absolutely. Because training for anything is huge. I've got some great interviews with eBay experts and you could model a lot of that stuff. Okay, that's an idea. All right, what was the other idea? You're listening to an exclusive interview found on Michael Senoff's hard-to-find-seminars.com.
The other idea was quite similar to what you do in terms of business and marketing information, but I was looking to sort of tailor that or use that to the entire market. I'm very interested in, speaker development, and I've been thinking of a way to create a sort of system. What you've done with the HM consulting material with research, create a sort of system that people can take and, go away and do. But I've been thinking of how to create a sort of not just the audio interviews with an expert, which is what I need your opinion on whether that's the viable market going to, but also helps actually create a system. And if it is possible to actually create a system for the HR market.
I just don't know enough about that market to really tell you if it's a good market to go into. And that's why it all starts with your research, and if you're good searching around, you can type that in, what's the human resource market like? Type in training for human resource directors, find out who's in that market already selling for the human resources market and simply email them or call them and just say, I'm Vivian, I'm from the United Kingdom and I'm thinking about selling for this market. How's it doing in this economy? What's it like? Most people will be glad to share their information. And they say, really, that's terrible. These people don't buy anything. Their funding has been frozen. It's just not good. So do your research first. You know what I'm saying? Where the craft count is really interesting because it's showing you where people have voted with their dollars. It's showing you which overall
sellers are selling the most. I mean, you look at the bead, that bead market must be huge. I know it's huge. And here's something I want you to think about, and I'll send you a link to a free interview on licensing. You know, it takes a lot of work doing these interviews and creating the interviews and doing all that stuff. It takes time, it takes money, especially if you're going to do the editing, even if you're going to do transcripts and stuff. You understand what licensing is?
Yeah, I was gonna say career interviews basically on what you've done, getting someone's product and getting the right to use that product. Yeah.
That's right. So it's either you do it yourself, but sometimes it can be even better for you to find an expert within the bead industry, okay? Someone who sells beads, or I'm not sure in what part of the bead market you get into, but you find an expert who spent their whole life doing this stuff, and you get licensed the right to the work already done. So you're basically buying the right to market a product that's already been put together. So all the time and the years and the expertise and the resources have been put together by that expert. And that sometimes is better when you're selling an expert's product rather than your own product. So like you saw the HMA, Richard's HMA system. You know, Richard is a marketing consulting expert. I'm not claiming to be the expert. He's the expert. So I get to say he's the world's best, which I think he is one of the world's best. And I've been able to license his intellectual property and put it all together and market it as a system. So it's basically a license that I have from stuff that he's been doing for, 30 years. And then when I say check this guy out, it's a lot better than saying check me out. Look how great I am, And then if you find someone who's been in the beading industry for 50 years, that person has all that credibility. I mean, who would you rather learn something from? Someone who's been in the beading industry for 50 years, or Vivian, who is getting into, doesn't know much about it, but is interviewing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
If you do interview 10 beading experts that come from different aspects of beading, from selling to manufacturing to creative ideas to selling on Etsy or eBay, you compile all those experts. If they're all experts in themselves, then you have the credibility of all 10 of those interviews, and they're not fans of your product. So in that respect, that may be a good idea. I'm just saying, keep an open mind to both. And it could be a combination of both. You could license something, like let's say, if you're going to sell something, the most important thing is the credibility of that expert, okay? So let's say if you found an expert that really gives a lot of credibility to your marketing and your promotion, then go ahead and license that part, but at the same time, add your product by doing additional interviews. So, for example, with Richard, he was the expert, but I built onto the product by interviewing other marketing consultants. I built onto the product by interviewing my HMA consultants as well. But the real key to it was Richard. So I've got that part licensed, but I can still keep building onto the product, and so can you. But the most important thing is getting that real expert. That's going to put you way ahead, I think. You got to keep that in mind. Does that make sense, or is it confusing?
that makes a lot of sense, and it's also sort of giving me time to feel the opportunity within that market as well. See what I can sort of research more and find more information on.
What was the other idea?
The other idea was the franchises, and I think you might have mentioned it somewhere in one of your interviews. Basically, what I was thinking of was look at the top franchises in the UK and to interview the people who has been successful within each of franchises and to create an information product that I can license out to the franchise or where they can include that in a training package.
Yeah, now that could be a wonderful idea. Absolutely. That takes licensing. You're integrating licensing and you're integrating product development. But again, I would say you want to do your research, okay? So first of all, if you're going to do that, you want to pick the right type of franchise. If you want to contact maybe some of the franchise stores, some of the people who own the franchise, and ask, does the franchise offer you any kind of sales training or marketing training on, how to operate your store? Many franchises fall short on that. So if you find a franchise that there's a great demand for that definitely is the floor. Maybe before you do that, you want a small corporate as well. Explain what you're doing, saying, talk to the people who handle the sales and the training for all the franchisees, and ask them, are y'all lacking the training for your franchisees?
From product training and marketing as part of their package, but also I think the element of connecting, which is something that I believe Mary Kay has been able to do very well, because they have all the events where they get people who have done it very capable treating 20 years come and talk to the other ladies is very inspiring, but that's not something that you find with other business opportunity market.
Yeah. Look, you could do that. Let's say they didn't want to be involved, and let's say you could find the number one franchisees around the world. But just as an example, let's say it was McDonald's, okay? Yeah, and you found the top 10 McDonald's franchises in the world, or let's say the top ones in the UK and the United States, and you contacted those owners and, said, you're interviewing the top 10 McDonald's franchisors worldwide in UK, and you put together 10 interviews, okay? Let's say only half of them agreed. You put together 5 interviews. And so you have this collection of 5 interviews with the top franchises in the world, revealing their secrets and how they were able to grow their franchise and how they work with corporate and all the secret. If corporate didn't want to be involved in that, you could market that directly to the franchise owners, because it's not hard to get a list of McDonald's owners. That's all available. You can get the list and you can certainly market that collection of interviews. A lot of these franchises, there's all kinds of them, but in today's economy, they're probably struggling and they're really hungry for new ideas. And listening to successful operators who are succeeding in spite of the economy would be very appealing to them. And you could sell that as a digital product up online, just like I do, or you can put them on CDs, and that would be very good because you have a captive market. But you want to make sure you've got a franchise with a lot of franchisees. If you find something a small one with 100, you're limited to who you can sell to.
You probably not have a lot of successful ones as well, depending on how long you've been in business.
Yeah, but then again, look, I do like that idea, and a couple things you can do with that. Let's just say you stayed within the restaurant category or fast food. You could do McDonald's, you could do Kentucky Fried Chicken, you could do Wendy's, you could do Burger King. So let's just say you're at a collection of the top franchises from Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King, Kentucky Fried Chicken. All of them would be interested to learn some of the secrets of each one of those other franchises, because they could take those ideas and implement them in their existing store,
Yeah.
That would be very interesting. Top producers of fast food franchises. That could be good. So listen to what you can do. Let's say you had a collection of 25 interviews with some of the top fast food franchises, and we're just using that as an example for a particular market. It could be any type of franchise. You could take that collection of interviews, and there are franchises that actually sell a franchise for you. They're self-franchises, right? And they're selling digital opportunity just in the form of a franchise worldwide. And then you could either contact the franchising department and say, would like to help sell your franchise for a percentage. And some of these franchises can go from anywhere from 10 to 20, 40, 50, 100, 200,000, $1 million, right? For more exclusive interviews on business, marketing, advertising, and copywriting, go to Michael Senoff's hard-to-find-seminars.com. They may pay you 20% on the sale of a $100,000 franchise that you can make 20 grand on. And the way you do it is you release your CD. You tell people who are considering buying a fast food franchise. So if I was buying a fast food franchise, I would love to hear from the top. I'd like to hear from a Wendy's guy, a Burger King guy, and then you can use those audios, and at the end of the audio, you say, if you're interested in that franchise opportunity, please contact. You have them contact you, but you've got to set up the deal with the franchisor. But there are franchises that will sell you, Vivian, you could pay $20,000 or $30,000 to have the rights to resell franchises. And I can get the name of that company for you. I have a new HMA consultant who just came in, and he was in that business. And I can get the name of that company, and you can do. He bought a master franchise for Fantastic Sam, which is a haircut outfit. Small franchises, once they're set up as a franchise, they're in business to sell territories, to sell locations, to sell cities, to sell states.
Very competitive as well.
Yeah, it is very competitive, but by you interviewing some of the top experts, if I was considering running a franchise, I would love to hear those interviews. I mean, that would be exciting, having a collection of audio recording from top franchisors, and how they're doing, and really giving the inside scoop of what it's like.
I love research. Oh, that's not a problem for me. I can spend hours researching materials on the internet. I'm going to libraries and stuff. I'm able to do a lot of research on that.
That's one option. The other option, if you find a certain amount of franchises or a niche you want to go to, go to Entrepreneur Magazine, and they have a magazine that's top 500 franchises and they list them from one to the most popular. And so you can track down the owners of these successful franchises. Getting them to do an interview may be another story. Start from somewhere, yeah. Not everyone is going to say yes. Even if 1 out of 10 say yes, you're good. You only need 10 or 20. You don't even need that many. You can have one interview with the #1 Subway franchise in the world. #1. And you could just tell that interview all day long. How many Subways are there? Probably 10,000 all over the world. You could say, you're a Subway franchise. How would you like to listen to a 2-hour tell-all interview with the #1 Subway franchise in the world, who's located in some small little town? Keep this in mind. You never know what's going to happen as you dive into this. So let's say that you were able to get a top franchise to do the interview. You want to make sure that you get the rights to that interview. Okay, that's important because, and whether you get it orally or if you felt like it's really important, you wanted to just get something in writing before you do the interview, you could do that. I don't do that, but if you really wanted to set yourself up right, you could say that the rights to this interview belongs to me and not you. And then once you get a good interview or if you find there's some good demands for it, then you could go back at Subway and you can say, hey, I've got an interview with your #1 franchise. Do you think that your other franchises could benefit from that? And then you can license it to the franchise to promote their franchise.
I think that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Michael. Have you had a situation where, you said it to someone that the right for the audio to view and they've come back to you later, said, you know what, you're making money from this now. I want my own skill.
No, it's never ever happened to me.
Okay.
Never happened to me. And that was something I was afraid of. It just hasn't happened because when you do an interview and if the guy's willing to do the interview, it's understood. So in this situation with the franchise, with your plan to sell that and to maybe possibly go back to corporate, you're not going to tell him that. You should say you're putting together a collection of interviews with the #1 top franchises and ask them to sign this long agreement. That's going to really hurt you. That's not going to happen. So what you do is before the interview, you say, I'm going to record the interview just like you and I did. And I mentioned to you that I want to put it up on my website. Now, I didn't get real specific that I may package it and sell it. If I were you and you're getting one of these real important interviews like that with those plans, I would just say in your own language, and then I may package it and I may sell it online. So you understand I'm going to have the rights to it and we're going to help get the word out about how great you are. Because that's really why they were talking to you. They get a chance to talk about their passion, their business, and what they love. And they may say, sure, no problem. It's going to be very rare that you're going to have someone who's going to say, well, if you sell this, I want to make money. That's just not going to happen. What you can do is you can tell them, look, I'm going to do all the production. I'm going to do all the editing. I'm going to create a wonderful product. And once I finish it, I'll send the recording to you on a CD. But you make an understanding that you have the rights to it. Or if you're busy running their business, they're not worried about getting into the internet marketing game. You may find someone you really like and after you talk to them for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and you kind of become like a friend, and you just think, oh, because I have the right to offer to see if they'd be interested in sharing it with some of the other franchisees and make you a star. And maybe we can develop some training on that. So there's all kinds of opportunities. Now, I'd like to send you to another great interview. The Laser Man. If you Google Laser Man interview, LASER, Laser Man interview, there's an interview I did with a guy who worked in a hospital and he started a laser institute, for removing like birthmarks and stuff like that. And you'll hear what he did. He created a whole training for the laser industry and you'll hear how he went to the manufacturer of the laser, the company called Candela. And he got them to position them as the marketing expert for all the doctors who were buying the laser. And this is exactly what you want to kind of do. And then you want to listen to this interview with this guy named Rand Brenner. And if you stay on my list, just check your emails. We did 5 hours on licensing. We answered about 130 questions from all my students, all on licensing. This stuff is phenomenal. I'm going to package it. I'll probably be selling it only for like $20, all 5 hours. But the stuff is definitely incredible. And you can hear a couple hours with Rand Brenner on licensing up on my website. So really nail down the licensing stuff because I didn't really understand the licensing stuff a few years ago, but this is powerful stuff. And it really shortcuts a lot of the work and stuff you have to do by creating your own product. So you can do a combination of both.
how you firstly started with your Abraham material selling that first before using your own audio interview. Now, what I wanted to ask was, did you wait till you had quite a number of interviews before launching your site, or did you just put them as you went along?
I put them up as I went along. I mean, I can remember when it was 27 hours of interviews and 31, then 51, then 68, or then 72, then 103. And yeah, I just kept putting them on.
Okay. How much does it cost to maintain a site like yours with all the audio interviews and the workspace and everything?
To actually post the website,
Yeah, and all the management.
to keep the site up, I have my own server, okay? I pay, I'm going to say $150 a month, it's like my rent. I have the server to host all my interviews, but you don't have to pay that much. I mean, I'll turn you on to my web guy, and it's the same guy I've been with since the beginning, and he's awesome. I've just grown into my own server, and when you email me, I'll send you his contact information. When you're in the UK, you can still host out of the United States. I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah, just using up the currency conversion.
And we can host for under $10 a month. Yeah, and you just start off slow. $10 a month, and you need your website URL, which will cost you about $10 a year. You're ready to go.
Another question I had was, how did you decide on which products to sell? So you've got a lot of the free stock online and everything. How do you decide on which ones are actually going to make you the money, which are going to sell? Because I noticed that with the one I bought, you had a few of the one that you had on the site.
You're listening to an interview on Michael Senoff's hard-to-find-seminars.com.
I was buying and selling the J. Abraham stuff, right? And, I was buying that stuff from people who went to seminars, and that was limited. I knew that I needed to get my own products put together. The Audio Marketing Secrets is a course, but it's also a compilation of maybe 20 or 30 consultations I've done with other students, just like yourself, right? As you start building interviews, you look at this whole collection that you have, and then you start packaging them. I took all my consultations and packaged it with my Audio Marketing Secrets. I took all my interviews on barter and created a product called Barter Secrets. I took all my interviews that related to doing joint ventures and created a product called Joint Venture Magic. I took all my copywriting related interviews. I've even sold a collection of, even though I give those away free, I did try selling all 31 hours of my copywriting interviews, my list. That didn't go that well, so then I opened them back up for free. If you're building your collection, you may want to give it away for free for a couple reasons. You got to get some stuff away for free to get people to come to your site. Yeah, I'm trying to build an email list. So if you're giving away some good value and you have an opportunity for someone to sign up, and if they want to be notified when the next great interview is, you need to get their email address. That's why I'm doing it. So you're giving away stuff for free, but as you start building up your collection, then you can start taking parts of those interviews and taking them off the free part and packaging them and creating a product and sell it to your email list. But you don't have to go that route. I don't know if they're really going to sell as far as you got to test it, If you just do an excellent job on the interview and really ask great questions and pull out good value, people are going to realize that. And if they're looking to learn stuff on a certain subject, you offer a money back guarantee and you just give good value for a good price and it'll sell. Won't sell to everyone, but, it's kind of a loaded question. There's a lot more aspects to it than just that. It's also kind of building a relationship with your subscriber list and stuff like that, too. But it starts with the interview, and you've got to either start doing the interviews yourself or you have to acquire or license content interviews. Got to start there. Does that help?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that answers the question. I realized that any explaining with it. There's actually a lot of elements to it.
And look what you could do. For example, if you interview 10 franchises from Kentucky Fried Chicken, 10 from McDonald's, 10 from Taco Bell, there's different restaurants. So let's say you did 10 from 10 different franchises. Types of food, you could take those and categorize them. You could separate the men from the women. You could separate the old guys from the young guys. You could separate the U.S. from the U.K. You could separate the city franchises from the country town franchises. You can make these different categories from your collection. and give them a different market, So you could sell a collection for just franchises in the country. Try to build $1 million country franchise. Interviews with the world's top franchises located in the country. Or top 10 interviews with the world's top franchises located in metropolitan cities. Or top 10 women-owned fast food franchises. So once you have your interview, you can break them up. Look, I mean, just in 2 seconds, we came up with 5 different markets that you can go after. You can get a lot of mileage out of one interview. And what you could do to make it really simple, let's just say you did that and you did a real good interview and you prepared and you had all these questions. You could make the question the exact same for every one of them. And you could just sell the answers if you wanted to. What's your number one secret for franchise success? Let's just say that's one of your questions. And you asked all 50 or all 100 of those franchise experts what that was. You could edit out that answer and just sell, here's 100 answers from 100 different world's top franchises on their number one secret to success. And if you have 50 different questions, you got 50 different products. So you'll be able to get a lot of mileage out of your products. Now, you also notice, which is very astute of you, but I have a lot of stuff. You notice that I did have some free stuff that's still free on my site packaged in with my product, right? Well, I wouldn't want to sell the full product where all the interviews were free. Probably 80% of that product is exclusive in that product. You won't find it free on my site. So you can use some free stuff, you can see as unadvertised bonus, or there were bonus interviews. So it's just a way to build value to the product. And a lot of people won't know that you're giving it away for free. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
I mean, looking at the franchise model, I mean, I essentially, it's not necessarily in a website where I have these interviews working directly with the franchises.
You could do that. You could approach franchises and say, bring me on as a contingency marketing expert. And you could say, you're an expert interviewer and you want to help them sell the franchise. And what you want to do is you want their support where you'll give me an introduction to some of your top franchises. And you'll approach them, you'll interview the top franchises, you'll edit and put together and create a product, a training product for all the franchisees. You'll create it, but you'd ask them to license it back, or you'll ask, you could use that product and become a sales rep for their franchisees. Should anyone who listens to these interviews decide they want to buy your franchise, you want to present it to them. So you become a salesperson for the franchisees and a training arm. The only thing, franchisees, they want to sell franchises. That's their business. So they're going to copy you. I think that's a great idea. You probably heard me talking about it. I'd do it if I had more time, and I think that'd be great because you can make a lot of money. You sell one, that could be 10, 20, 30 grand. And it's which ones you're getting into.
I'll definitely do more research on that. I mean, Michael, I know you talk about I had £100 in my account. And I could start with £100.
Yeah, you could. With $100, you could do it. All you need is a phone. You need a digital recorder, just like what I have. And you need to be able to email someone and say, hey, would you let me do an interview with you? What else do you need to get that first interview done? You may not at this point get the transcripts done unless you wanted to do them yourself. Or you may do your own editing, because when I started, I did all my own editing. I never did my own transcripts. You'd maybe have to write your own description of what the interview is about, but you could get a great interview for virtually nothing. There are services that you could call freeconferencecall.com, where they have a recording option. You wouldn't even need a digital recorder as long as you set it up and you got a free conference call line and had them call in and you called in. It could record the call for you if you didn't have a little digital recorder. There's online services that you can do conferences and they'll record it so you can get that recording. Yes, absolutely, you can. You just start with one. Get that first one done. There's nothing easier. I'm telling you, we're launching a product right now.
I think it's the way you make it sound really simple.
How hard is it? I'm sitting in a comfortable chair. I'm in my office. I have my socks and shoes off. I'm just sitting at my desk. I have my little digital recorder here and I'm talking on the phone. How hard is that?
No.
Okay, I mean, it doesn't get any easier than this. But it's the marketing, it's information, it gets that credibility. And believe me, I did a lot of interviews with people with no credibility. I mean, that's how I got started. I try and do a lot of my interviews now with more credible people because it's good for the search engine. And, if I said I had an interview with Barack Obama, a lot of people would want to hear that. Not because of me, because of them. Aim high to your interview, Jeff. Go for the number one in the field, the best, the top, because people want to hear from number one. And if you can get that, you'll get more money for the products you sell because it doesn't have anything to do with you. It's about the person you're getting, and you'll find that top people are the nicest people. That's right. Yeah.
Sure. What objectives have you had from experts that you were meeting with?
They may say it's not the right time. I've got an interview coming up with a guy named Ken McCarthy. Have you ever heard of him?
No, I haven't.
He's a big internet marketing guy, and he's been around for a very long time. And I was referred to him, and I reached out to him to see if he wanted to do an interview. He was swamped all last month because he get back with me in November. So November came around, I emailed him, and we got something lined up for next week. You may be findings, they may ignore you. Either you don't hear back from them at all, or you'll hear back from them and they'll say yes. So I don't really get the objections. It's either a yes or they'll ignore you. Your objection will be you won't hear from them. Or they may call you and say, well, what's this about? And, you got to have a reason. Why are they going to do an interview with you? You understand what's their purpose for doing the interview. Even at the beginning, it was all about self-promotion. People give interviews because they want to promote themselves, because they want to get some more exposure, because maybe someone will find out about, how great they are, that they're number one franchise in the country, or that they're supporting the franchisee, McDonald's, and that's good for business, or that they're going to get free publicity or more notoriety. If those are interesting for them, what you can do is you can say you'll give them a copy of the interview, and you'll license the right to them that they can use it to self-promote themselves. They can promote themselves as a business owner or whatever, and you'll do all the production work and everything. That in itself may be enough for them to say yes. You know what I'm saying? You're listening to an exclusive interview found on Michael Senoff's hardtofindseminars.com.
Yeah, I understand. It's about giving them a reason to do the interview.
Yeah, you give them a reason. It could be fame. For me, it's exposure on my website so they can sell more stuff. So people can learn about them. They're not going to be able to reach everyone. So we're going to put their name and their product and their service in front of a whole bunch of people that they would never be able to get, which may come back to them and buy something from them. That's all understood,
You have like a product development checklist. So a list of things that you go to and say that's done back. So more like a guide when you're first developing a trader.
I don't. I do start with the interview. Audio marketing secrets. That gives you a model on how to create and package that information product. In the first recordings, it itemizes like different titles for the CDs, biggest mistakes if you're creating like an audio product. So you've got kind of like a model there.
I'm going to look into the franchises and do a little bit of digging around and research on that and see what I can come up with in that loop. And from what we've talked about, I'm pretty much excited myself about, being able to come up with it in less than a couple of minutes.
No, I think that would be great. If you email me later, I'm going to get you the licensing interview. I'm going to get you the information on that franchise itself, the franchising opportunity. Remind me of what I promised to send you, and I'll send it to you. Oh, the Laser Man. Yeah, Laser Man.
You did an interview. I've forgotten the name of the man. He's into self-publishing.
Self-publishing, yeah.
And he was talking about public domain. So the man who pre-published the Think and Go Rich manual.
Oh, yeah. That's Cuba.
That's right. I do sort of public domain material for quite some time now. And I did a lot of public domain books and thinking about something republish some of them, but not as they are. For instance, within the well-to self-help category, I was thinking of, publishing a workbook, like a supporting workbook for a lot of the public domain material. Because what I found was a lot of them are quite dated, and although the principles are still the same, but what you find with a lot of self-help books, read these books and it becomes a challenge on how to implement the principles in everyday life. So I was thinking of sort of creating some sort of workbook for a selection of public domain self-help books, and I could quickly run that past you just feel it.
I don't know. First of all, you've got a public domain product, okay? It depends how many people are still reading it and downloading it. It depends on the demand for it. Maybe like That's Yuba guy. He did Think and Grow Rich. He redid that. If you looked at the public domain of Think and Grow Rich, now he redid it, and he may not have a workbook. You could produce a workbook around his rewrite of Think and Grow Rich. Like if you went to marketers who took the ideas of taking a public domain work and redoing it and updating it, right? And there's a lot of people who do that. And let's say they don't have a workbook for their updated version, and they have been selling their version for a long time. You can say, hey, look, I know you updated Think and Grow Rich. Well, here's a companion workbook that I put together for you. Would you be interested in offering this to all the people who bought your book? But to go find a public domain book that you have no way of finding out who downloaded it or who owns it or who has it or who wants it, I don't think that's a good idea. But the idea I just gave you, if you have a publisher, they already have buyers of that book, especially if they're like online marketers. Someone redid a book called The Lazy Man's Late for Riches, which was by a famous mail order guy named Joe Carbo. If you did that and on your own developed a workbook, that's something you could easily do a joint venture with the owner of the person who redid the book because they've got the buyers. I like the idea of your franchise stuff better because it's easier to do the interviews. It's funner. You're going to learn more. And those interviews are going to be like little sales machines that could sell you franchises that'll make you $15,000, $10,000, or $20,000 a pop if you can negotiate it with the franchisee. Once you complete them, they don't die. They could be out there. They could be online, and they're little sales machines. All my interviews on my site are selling something. Either they're selling me or they're selling a product on joint ventures or barter or persuasion or consulting or on copywriting. Even while we're talking, someone is listening to something or they're being sold something or they're learning something. That's what you want to build for yourself.
I was entering the margins on, I didn't quite understand that. It was in one of the interviews where you said, I think it was the interview where you were talking about how to research the niche market and all, and you were talking about how to measure a margin underneath, and I didn't quite understand that.
I think when I talk about margins, maybe I'm talking about, how much you're going to make off of the product. Like, for example, if you're going to sell a product, let's say back to the bead, okay? And you're going to go into the bead market and you're going to sell 21 best color combinations for beaded necklaces. And you're going to sell that as an ebook. Well, you may have all the bead artists and enthusiasts who want to buy it. What does a book go for? Or an ebook or an audio, something like that where you're just selling some ideas may go for $20-$30. Maybe it'll go for more, but I don't think it could go too high. But let's say you sold interviews with the jewelry making expert who make $100,000 a year. Someone is going to buy that because they want to learn how to make $100,000 a year making beaded jewelry. There's a lot more value in that. That's something you can sell for $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 if you put on a detailed seminar, because you're selling a livelihood rather than a book that's going to show you the best color combinations of beaded necklaces. So when you go for something that's going to show them how to make more money in their business, you can get more money for that product. The margins are higher. Do you think that's what I was referring to?
I think so, yes. I think that's what we were trying to say. And also, with writing the product descriptions, I know that now you've come to the stage where you have a copywriter who does that. But someone like me who's just starting now, how would you advise I go about doing that?
Well, if you're going to do it yourself, a couple things you can do. Do you think you're going to be doing the editing yourself? Okay. The only way to really write a good description, like the girl who does it for me, I send her the recording and there's no way around it. She's got to listen to it. And after you listen to it, we will write bullet points and she'll write a little description of what the interview is about. And there's just no shortcut around it. If you're doing the interview, if you can keep focused and do the interview and ask her questions, as you listen, you can take notes. Like if someone, reveals something that just kind of perks their mind, you could make a little outline of some of the secrets that they're revealing, because that's what you really want to write down in that description. So if the franchisor is telling you the secret for getting the ketchup on the burgers faster than Kentucky Fried Chicken, and you're listening to that, you may want to just write down ketchup on burgers faster than Kentucky Fried Chicken. So then when you write your description, You can say, in this interview, you'll learn how to get your ketchup on your burgers faster than Kentucky Fried Chicken. You'll pick up 5 or 6 things that are really cool that he told you about in the interview or that he's answered. And you could do that during the interview, or after you've done the interview, you can re-listen to the whole thing and go through and write your description of what it's about. And then you want to give it a nice headline. A lot of times, as he's talking, he's going to write it for you. You're basically going to compile some highlights of what he said for your description. You're not going to really have to write it. That's why it helps getting it transcribed out. If you can afford a transcriber, let's say you start off with smaller interviews, they're only 30 minutes each. You can get it transcribed for $25. And if you do that, you may have about 10 or 15 pages of transcripts and you'll read through them and you can highlight. Stuff will start jumping out at you. I know it's kind of hard to envision, but if you cook one of the transcripts, if I send you the Laser Man, are you going to listen to it or read it? I'm going to listen. And you listen, you're going to hear him say some things that are going to make you go, oh, that's interesting. That are going to keep your interest. Or if you're kind of zoning out and then he says something that brings you back into focus, those kind of things, you can make notes. I bet you could do it. I'm sure you could do it. It just takes time. That's it. I've done some myself, but I pay someone to do it who may do better than me. Time or money. Time or money, honey. That's what it comes down to. But I would encourage you to do some yourself first. Because you do them yourself first and you do a good job and you understand it and you know what needs to be done. Then when you bring someone on to do it for you, you're going to understand it better. Look, just start with one. You can nail down one interview a day. You really can. You won't be able to get it all transcribed, but I do the interview yourself. I would do the editing yourself. I think you could do your editing. It doesn't have to be meticulous. If you're prepared, okay? If you prepare for that interview and you have your 20 questions all in front of you, numbered 1 through 20, and then you got that interview subject on the phone and you just said, Michael, here's question number 1. And you read the question and you shut up and you just let him answer the question. And then if you didn't say anything, and then once he finishes his answer, you say, okay, great, question number 2. And you read question number 2 and then he got his answer. And if you don't talk much in the interview, which is fine, he's the expert. Let it be about him. You just ask the questions and get the information. If he says something, you want more information, tell me more about that. How much did you make? Is there good money in there? You got to pull out some of the good stuff. You may not have to do much editing at all. Maybe just a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end.
That's what Larry Singh does as well. If you watch his interview style, he would ask a question and, he would just sit up and just, look at them and try and lift them.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly what it's about. A lot of people will get into it and you don't want to think of the Vivian show. No one cares about you. No one really cares about me when I'm interviewing someone. They want to hear the guest. They want to hear the information. You're an advocate for the listener. The listener does not want to hear you. He wants you to ask the question that he's too afraid to ask. He wants you to ask him on behalf of him and sit and listen. So that's your job, to be the advocate for the listener who's afraid to ask, who wants to know the true answers to these questions. And that's your job. And that's how you'll bond with your listeners. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. That's very helpful.
If you don't talk much during the interview and you just ask a question, cut up, let them answer and go on to the next, you won't have much editing. A little bit of figuring, a little bit of editing. You can do the editing, you can do the interview, get it transcribed, and then you can do the description. It's you of them. You'll get it down.
Oh, Michael, you make it sound really simple.
Just do one. Do one 15-minute interview. If you did one interview for 15 minutes, you got an interview. If I had an interview with Barack Obama for 15 minutes, or I had one with him for 10 hours, it doesn't matter. I got an interview with Barack Obama. That would be a good idea for you. They don't have to be hour interviews. They're 2-hour interviews like mine. The longer your interview goes, the more time it takes and the more money it costs. Costs more in editing, take more time to listen to it, and that may be a much more successful model. In 10-minute interviews with these experts. it'll be easier to get them to say yes because you're only asking 10 minutes of their time. But if you can pack in a bunch of questions in 10 minutes with a busy executive, that's good. And those are marketable because it doesn't take a lot of time to listen to them. And if you've got the interview with that expert, even though it's 10 minutes, you still have that credibility of the expert. And that's going to be the same whether it's 10 minutes or an hour. So that may be a good idea for you, is to do mini interviews. 10 minutes. You could even do 5 minutes. And that'll take you a lot less time, a lot less editing, a lot less writing the descriptions, a lot less everything. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that sounds much more feasible.
Easier to handle. Yeah, you don't have to do hour and 2 hour. And think about it, many interviews are very short too. They do a segment on Oprah, and they may only be on for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 5 minutes. Same thing with, interviewing on the news too. Very short. Mine are more like seminars. They're more detailed. Thank you very much. Good talking to you. Email me. I will send you this recording. You can review it. I'll send you Laserman. I'll send you Rembrandt. And I'll send you the info on that franchising guy.
Thank you very much.
All right. Has this been helpful?
Yes, it has been very helpful.
All right. Great. Have a good evening.
And you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
For more interviews like this, go to hardtofindseminars.com. That's the end of my consult with Vivian on how to use audio to market her products and services. I hope it's been helpful. For more great interviews and consultations on marketing with audio, go to hardtofindseminars.com/A, M, S.htm. That stands for Audio Marketing Secrets. hardtofindseminars.com/A, M, S.htm. Thanks for listening.